This is Robert Martelacci with the MindShare Learning Report, and welcome to this special MindShare TV InnovateHERs podcast series, episode number 6, in conversation with Anna Hidalgo and Katie Fang, along with co-author Dr. Bobby Kurshan. Discover why purpose-driven entrepreneurial women rise to the top. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, ladies.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit about our guest today. Anna Hidalgo is founder of Lab 21 and Reinvent Ed Schools, is passionate about using innovative education practices to drive social change throughout Latin America. Prior to founding her company, she served as an advisor in foreign affairs to the mayor of Quito, Ecuador, and as a graduate fellow in the Executive Office of Education of Massachusetts. She has had the opportunity to represent Ecuador at the world's most important youth conference, One Young World, and she has spoken at seminars and at national and international events. She has degrees in BA in Foreign Affairs and Anthropology at the University of Virginia and an EDM from Harvard University. Katie Fang is the founder and CEO of SchoolLinks, an education technology company that offers advanced college and career planning solutions as of 2021 and now focused on K-12 solely. SchoolLinks is a venture-backed series and a startup headquartered in Austin. Fang was named Forbes top 30 under 30, top Texan under 30, the young woman to watch, and has been featured on the cover of Austin Women's Magazine. She's got a BA in Commerce and Finance from the University of British Columbia, small Canadian connection there. So thank you again for joining us, along with Bobby Kurshan, who we're fortunate to have with us, in place of Kathy Hurley, who's stuck on a plane flight today. Bobby, over to you for the first question for our guests.
Well, Katie, it's great to have you both. And I thought I would start by asking both of you the same question, but starting with Katie. Katie, you started your work coming from China and helping Chinese students navigate the application process to attend schools in the U.S. When did that light bulb go off? And clearly, how did you pivot? One of the traits of an entrepreneurial mindset is the ability to take action and to pivot when necessary. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was probably one of those students in the first waves of international education became popular, and took advantage of that and started studying abroad at the age of 12. So that was a long time ago. And I remember back then I just had tremendous passion to explore different cultures overseas, and I felt like definitely like I want to explore and I want to experience the different education systems. So the navigation portion was very, very difficult, and in high school and middle school, I was in, different schools that used college and career planning systems. And it was because the process was so painful, right? And then not knowing how to really navigate, and the resources were kind of outdated. And that really prompted me to search elsewhere to see if in the market there's any solution that can accomplish this. So schooling started out as a passion project. It was literally me being asked to help my family, friends, and relatives to navigate that post-secondary planning and application process. And being a teenager, was not very into doing customer service, and I was not a very good, I was not a people person. So what I did was, documenting steps and trying to educate other people on how to find an institution and how to actually obtain that actual goal. So that became a passion project of mine, and started, a little website just to document and help people search for different institutions. It wasn't really restricted to the U.S. It was more for about any students anywhere in the world to find education program anywhere. And for an experienced VC or venture capitalist, when you hear that, red flag, right? Because I wasn't really solving a particular problem and it's too vague. So it wasn't until like really, going through the process of starting a company and understanding the concept of product market fit, right? What we are trying to do, or what I was trying to do, was such a small problem, and a very niche group of students are thinking about international education and finding a suitable program just anywhere. So we needed to redefine what is the problem that we are actually solving, and what is a problem that has huge pain associated with a large willingness to pay, right? Because any good business is solving a good problem that are people that are willing to pay for, to find a solution. So that's when we decided to truly pivot, narrow down the scope, and finding that pain point and reflecting on my personal experience, what exactly failed in that process. And then we, I anchored down, it's a technology solution, right? Like we can use a tech-enabled solution to really help students fast track their goal attainment and then figure out what they want to do in life.
That's very good. Clearly, you've got a lot of passion about it, and we probably won't get into too much of this, but has been very successful along your journey. So I'm going to just follow up with one question with that. Tell me what your biggest obstacle has been as you tried to secure funding for this.
Yeah, a lot.
More than one, right?
Yeah, more than one, absolutely. So I was in LA. That's where my family immigrated to when I was a teenager. And right after graduating from college, I decided to, start this company in California because that's the capital of all the exciting startups. So decided to do that, and because I get free rent from my parents' house, that's important to survive. And but I would say I didn't go to a fancy school, right? Like usually venture capitalists, when they're judging a business, especially as a first-time founder, I didn't have any experience in this industry. I didn't have any experience running a company or starting a company. And I'm not a topic, I'm not an expert in this topic, right? Besides my own passion and my own personal experience, that counts for something, but not a lot. and also, I feel like didn't go to a fancy school. I don't have that type of credential to prove that I went through that, selective process to get into an Ivy League, right? So I felt like all cards are stacked against me when I was raising funding. And initially, to be honest, one of the reasons we went just fully bootstrapped, it was because I felt like no one believed me. And then I wanted to prove myself that I can do it by myself. And that's when we really put our heads down. And then I found like-minded people to join the company, in exchange for stock options. And we were, living together in my parents' house to, code this idea, right? So yeah, I didn't know if I really answered the question, but lots of
No,
challenges.
that's a good one. And that's a good segue for us to move over to Anna. Robert?
Absolutely. And after completing your education at Harvard, did you consider staying in the US, or was it always your plan to return to Ecuador to implement your innovative education reform ideas, and what inspired that?
Thanks. Thank you so much for having me here. No, I definitely, after finishing a master's degree in Harvard, I wanted to stay at first. My boyfriend was getting his MBA in a school also in the area. But I had this huge need to go and do something after everything that I had, learned and developed, that I really didn't think twice. I came back with ideas and with a method that I had created in my thesis, right, for my master's. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put this to work, and we'll do long distance for a year until he finishes his MBA. So it was more of a need to actually do something in the market and in the place that I knew needed it more. I could have probably had a better job and a better paycheck if I stayed, definitely. But I had this sense of urgency that really kept me up at night. I come from a country, Ecuador is a developing country in the middle of Latin America. The education sector needs are huge. I think they're huge all over the world, but when you have more urgent need for resources and for ideas and for people to come back when they've been, trained and educated abroad, there's really this sense of urgency to actually come and do something about it, right? So I really didn't think twice about staying or leaving. It was kind of what my gut told me that I had to do.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Do you all think, both of you could answer this, because you both told stories of your international, you both have experience coming from an international, returning, and you both have journeys of education in the US and working with your culture. How has that influenced your passion, clearly, but how has it influenced your ventures?
If I can answer,
Sure, both of you.
So yesterday I was on a call with one of my classmates from my master's degree. She's living in Paris. She has an education venture related to the OECD, and we're talking about how to measure 21st century competencies in Ecuador in the schools that I run. So the influence is really direct and really big in the sense that you're connected to a wider network and a wider set of resources than if you would have just stayed, home and studied in a local university. I think it exposes you to different perspectives, different experiences, and definitely a different network and a different set of resources.
Katie, how's it influenced you?
It's the American dream, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the more that I feel the innovation ecosystem is something that I cannot see it anywhere else. And it's I don't know. And now being in Austin, Texas, and before it was the California vibe and Silicon Valley, you just feel it. It's something that I cannot describe. Everyone has the best ideas, and everyone is so action driven, right? Trying to make something work despite the challenges, despite the constraints, and despite some people think they're delusional. Like, I think in this country, impossible is nothing. And that's something I couldn't feel elsewhere. So I think that type of mindset and this type of excitement is what made me feel like I need to literally buy an airplane ticket to go to the US and start my company on my graduation day at UBC.
Wow, that's an amazing. Both of you have amazing stories.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Katie, it reminds me of the notion, if you could, that some people subscribe to, if you can imagine it, you can create it or build it. And kudos to you for that human spirit. I did my master's at Pepperdine in EdTech, and we were challenged to change the world. And I saw a void in our country. There was no national EdTech magazine. There was no national EdTech conference. And we created it, So I got that fire in my belly that was accelerated by being in an environment that nurtures creativity and spurs innovation. So environment, I think, really also does play a role. Thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think now that I'm working, with young children, the environment that they're learning at definitely has an impact. And we actually go with the, Reggio Emilia approach to calling the environment the third educator.
I'm Italian, so I can relate to that.
Yeah, you can actually set up the environment to help you, navigate all of these skills for children and for myself. I think the fast-paced U.S. American university environment was definitely, comparing it to the needs that I knew were back home, really spurred that action orientation and that urgency that I was talking about.
As Katie
Brilliant.
mentioned, she took her business and pivoted. You have also pivoted too. Your first venture is quite different from your second venture, and I know you're still involved with your first venture. Talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby, for that question. So the first thing I did after coming back from the US was setting up a teacher training enterprise dedicated to developing social emotional competencies in teenagers and young adults. So we were going into the schools, low income schools, training teachers, developing their self awareness and their social competencies so that they would replicate the program with their students. It was a social enterprise. It wasn't a non-for-profit because we started doing this also for large companies in Ecuador that needed social emotional training for their staff. So people that worked as in call centers or in big supermarkets in serving other people and stuff like that. They needed this training as well, and so we had this 1-for-1 model where we trained somebody from your staff and you give us the money to train a teacher. It was a social enterprise. Well, the reason that I pivoted so boldly to my new enterprise, which is a network of schools of private schools that wish to develop autonomous character in our students, apart from academic excellence and connections, to the international world. The reason I pivoted really is that I became a mom, and I started looking for schools for my kids, for my baby at that time, and that I couldn't find a school, not even the school that I went to, that gave me, the international opportunities that I had. I wasn't convinced that that was the environment for my children. And that was such a big, drive that I said, okay, well, if I know that social emotional competency is so important, then I need to build a school system around that and not have that as a complement, but really have that as the focus of our schools.
Well, both of you became moms during this journey, Katie too. So I'm sure you have a lot to relate about how having a child influenced your business. Katie, what about you? And because Anna
Congratulations.
talked about that too. We've
Yeah.
met both their children on Zoom.
Nice.
I think I became a lot more compassionate. I have a lot more patience now. And I think I became a better manager, to be honest. I felt like as an early 20 something running a company, and you have this fire in you and you don't believe anything, couldn't be done. Right. And I work insane amount of hours and I have no regard for any type of excuses and obstacles and challenges. And I just want to, achieve. Right. And Bobby, the need to achieve part is in my DNA. But having children in the beginning, and I'll talk about the pregnancy part first. I would like to regard myself as someone that, just doesn't back down. Right. And obviously when you are expecting, there are certain things you shouldn't do or you cannot do. Right. And I felt like that taught me a very good lesson to actually physically slow down to not endanger the baby that you're carrying. And because I was flying up until the last day that I delivered. And I had, with my first baby, right? I was just,
Wow.
it was pre-pandemic and I delivered, right before the country got shut down. And the second pregnancy was way different. But I just felt like I didn't really understand the why before I was pregnant and why we needed to slow down, why, women, have more challenges when they become, a mother or an expecting mother. I have no, I that couldn't resonate with me because I haven't gone through that. Now I developed a lot more just compassion and I'm able to understand. I remember when I was hiring a very senior executive and he actually told me, I'm glad that you are married and I'm glad that you have children. Otherwise, I would have not worked for you. Yeah, because I think, maybe there is this stigma with young entrepreneurs just not understanding life. Right. So that was an important lesson. And then now, like, I have a toddler. So reasoning with someone who's not capable of logic, that taught me a great lesson.
Things were right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, let me, we just have a few
Thank you
more
for
minutes.
that.
Yeah, we just have a little bit
Yeah.
more time, but I wanted to ask you both, and both of you, the reason we're having this show is around need to achieve. And Robert and I wanted to kind of talk because in the book, we talk about what combination of your skills and traits have made you the successful entrepreneurs that you are. And by the way, as an aside, I can relate to the mother pregnancy story. I wasn't on a plane, but I was driving 45 minutes from my office to Virginia Tech when I was pregnant. And my admin, we didn't have cell phones then. There was no way I was going to get in touch with anybody. And she was a nervous wreck. I said, "Oh, no, no, there's no problem. I'm not having this baby. I told him not to come." So I can relate to how it's changed you. So tell us a little bit about your skills and traits.
And Bobby, we talked about this. I feel like every single stage of my entrepreneurship journey, I changed a little bit. The combination changed a little bit, right? Like
Good.
right now, we're in a scaling mode, like 100 people company. Like I just need to master different things. And obviously, we talked about, some trades are inherited and then some trades are you can develop. I think initially, it's about that action orientation, right? That's the personality part, the trades part. And then I would say the skill is that undying optimism. I always say, like, I'm a cockroach. Like, nothing can kill me, right? And it's just the amount of obstacles that as an entrepreneur that you would face. It's never ending, and no one is going to give you a pep talk because you started it. It's yours. You are in this like a misery because you chose to be. So, right. So you have to develop that sense of optimism to make sure that you can give that pep talk yourself to you and you understand how to stay, like be intrinsically motivated and stay optimistic. So I think that's what propelled me to, like we all almost ran out of money a couple of times, right? But you got to think fast and stay optimistic and truly believe in yourself in order to overcome that.
What about you, Anna?
Yeah, I'm relating to everything that you're saying, Katie, so much. Like you have to be your own cheerleader at all times because you need to cheer your team up when things are kind of rough. In my case, I think there's a sense of urgency and nonconformity that really drives me and that has been inherent in my journey. And I think you can tell from my story. I need to come back. I don't know why. I would be earning much better, but I need to come back. It's not even like rational, but it's just something that's there. And then the other thing I think that really drives what I've been doing is the future focus, which is a skill really that you need to try to always think in the long term, in the medium term, and not in the urgent problem that you're trying to solve, but where is this going to take me in a couple of years? Where are we going? And always, trying to be that cheerleader and that inspirator to the rest of your team, because that's so important for a new company, for an enterprise that's starting, that their leader is actually able to look forward, right? Not to look right here, but to look into the future. So I think that's one of the biggest things that has shaped my trajectory.
That's great. You all have both told stories that had some inhibitors that you've overcome. Clearly, you have being pregnant is not a negative inhibitor, but it had to overcome some of the barriers there. But the one I want to ask about the most is what we call a safety net. Clearly, you all had different kinds of safety nets. You, Katie, mentioned that you could go home and live at your family for free rent. So you didn't have to worry about sleeping on the street.
Yeah.
You, I know, and you haven't talked about it yet, but please do. You went home because your family is in Ecuador. You had a support system and you knew that it would be there to help you out. And you had a network. And both Kathy and I speak a lot about the network that you have. Katie didn't have the network. She had to build one quite extensively. You had a network. How have those inhibitors, how have you addressed them? Anna, talk a little bit about going back to Ecuador and using your network, and as Kathy says, your mentors.
Yes, no, absolutely. I have been very fortunate to have, parents that have let me choose what I wanted to do and let me dedicate my time and my energy to that specifically that I wanted to do, which I don't think everybody has that support. I come from a family of educators. And so my grandmother was a school leader. My mom was a school counselor. And I can relate to their struggles, even from the dinner table. We always had these conversations that really inspired who I think I am today. And definitely a network of peers and of just connections in the both in the education industry because of my family history or in the education sector, but also just in Ecuador being such a small society. In the business world in Ecuador, it's so close and so small that you can cultivate these connections from the work that I was doing, but also from just my social relationships in the country. So that was definitely something that helped me overcome and helped me, get to where I wanted to get, without saying that it was easy, because you still have to make a place for yourself, even if you have the connections, and you still have, you have clients to report to, and you have to bring the results, right? But it was definitely a more an easier navigation when you have somebody that you have a safety net to rely on, right? So yeah, that has definitely been very important, and the ability to connect with mentors and say, I read one of the biggest conversations that I've had with one of my mentors is, I don't feel like I can be there's this metaphor in Spanish, the tail of a lion, right? The small part of a lion. I have to be the head of the mouse, which is like, and they told me, like, I see you being the head of the mouse. You can't be the tail of the lion. That's not your personality. And that's one of the most important conversations that I've had with a mentor. How do you become the head of the mouse?
Brilliant.
Great. That's great. So, Katie, you had quite a different journey in your network, and you learned to have a network. But one of the things that you did have and that you created was you found mentors. You've told a story about how you found your mentor and went to California, sat in somebody's office. Share that story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the safety net Bobby shared was literally free rent. For me, that was like the bare minimum, right? Like, it just needed a roof under my above my head so that I can sleep and so that I can code and so that I can do the things that I need to do and not worry about paying rent, because California is expensive. But up until a certain degree, I realized I just don't have the know-how to really proceed forward anymore, right? Like, I know I have an idea, I need to code a platform, I need to do certain things and hire people, but up until a certain level, like, how do I really be a CEO, and how do I really, make this idea and this project and this platform really scale it, right? Like the go-to-market strategies and understanding how to fundraise and understanding all kinds of things. So I did hit a point where I felt very hopeless, right? My parents don't really speak English. They're immigrants, and so, like, I really struggled. They didn't have a network in the U.S., and my dad literally said, "You chose this route, right? You got to figure it out yourself." And my parents are, I came from a pretty well supported family environment, and then I wanted to raise a little bit money, from family friends, right? And dad basically said, well, this is because you chose this road and refusing a good career in finance, right? So you're pretty much on your own. So without like a lot of family capital, like I couldn't really raise any money from families and fools, and I had to turn into making a lot of friends, right? Those are the 3 F's. So and I LinkedIned a ton, just random people and trying to make connections and I think this is the best skills that I've developed. And I don't know if you know, in a business world, there's just like SDR, sales development, right? Like, or cold callers and those people that we typically hang up on. But I developed that skill of just cold outreach and reaching out to people that I need to know and researching the people that I need to know. And I started connecting with founders just online and then creating my own relationships and creating my own network. So one thing led to another. One of the friends that I made through that journey referred me to someone else in Silicon Valley, but actually lives in Austin, but from Silicon Valley. And when he was out there, and he somehow helped me arrange this very expensive coffee where I was supposed to, from LA to go to San Francisco and just meet for 30 minutes. I fought for that. I'm like, there's no way. Can it just be like an online chat or a phone call? We're like, nope, you got to go there. Like, you got to meet in person. I'm sure he's going to love you and you will learn so much from him. And this could be, something big, right? Like, it can turn into a meaningful relationship. So I did do that. And that person became my first investor, first angel investor ever. And he still sits on my board and also become like my mentor for the longest time, not only, business wise, but also personally, right? He really saw me grow. So I think it's serendipity. That you never give up on trying, and also paying attention to all the people that you meet in your life and recognizing everybody's strengths and making sure that you're spotting that, like cataloging that in the back of your head. And then, when you need it, right, like reach out. And I think, and on our South by panel, I think one thing that, just women can do better is just simply ask. When we have a need, just ask, because you will be pleasantly surprised. There are so many nice human beings out there. All we needed to do is ask.
That's a great way to end. Robert, do you want to add
Brilliant. No, I just want to say that I'm so impressed with your passion, your problem-solving skills, and your stick-to-itiveness to make it happen. Action orientation is so infectious, and congratulations on your success to date. I think our viewers will really value this conversation today. Grateful for it.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you
Pleasure.
so much.
And this concludes this MindShareTV InnovateHERs podcast series, episode number 6. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.